Happy Mother's Day. Whether this day is a time of celebration or a time of tenderness or some mix of both, I'm grateful that you have decided to join us today and hope that you might experience something of what your heart and mind needs this day. My name is Reverend Pamela Watt, and I am the minister here at First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, Delaware, where we are growing virtual community with online programs for children, youth, and adults. And during this time when we are away from our building and not having in-person connections, we especially invite you to subscribe to our online newsletter, which comes out each week. You can also follow us on social media, and also be sure to reach out to staff and volunteer leaders whose contact information is available on our website. One announcement that I especially want to highlight this morning is that next week we'll be having our annual congregational meeting to vote on the budget for the coming year, elect officers, and manage other higher level business of the congregation. A list of voting members is in e-news, so be sure to check that out and make sure that you are eligible to vote. If you have questions about the meeting, please be in touch with a member of the board. Today we welcome Reverend Andrew Weber to First Unitarian Church. Andrew is a proud, lifelong Unitarian Universalist, currently living in Newark, Delaware with his wife and 2 small children. Andrew is the travel program director with the Unitarian Universalist Partner Church Council and believes strongly in incorporating spirituality and faith identity in travel experiences. With the current restrictions on travel and changes in all of our lives, Andrew is mainly a stay-at-home parent these days, striving to continue to live a faithful and grounded life for himself, his family, and the world. Andrew, we welcome you to First Unitarian. And now let us prepare our hearts and minds for worship.
Lost a few friends in various ways, and that tells me that life is just a matter of days. Hey, only a few things really matter at all. Now you're grown up and ready to carry the ball. It's a matter of days, just a matter of days. Matter of days, just a matter of days. She said, yeah, 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 you don't need to tell me something I already know. I hear people talking, just saying the same things, like all of the time, wherever I go. Like all of the time, wherever I go. It's a matter of days, just a matter of days. Matter of days, just a matter of days. Well, I've strayed from the truth and I've acted out angry, but it's never worked out, always spoils my plan. Tell the truth and stay calm, think kindly of others, make this world a bit better whenever you can, 'cause it's a matter of days, just a matter of days. Matter of days, just a matter of days. Well, you've made some mistakes, you have surely made mine. I believe this is part of the human design. You can use every moment in so many ways. In time you will see life's a matter of days. Yeah, it's a matter of yeah, yeah, yeah. You don't need to tell me something I already know. I hear people talking, just saying the same things, like all of the time, wherever I go. Like all of the time, wherever I go. It's a matter of days, just a matter of days. Matter of days, just a matter of days. Matter of days, just a matter of days. Matter of days, just a matter of days.
Please join with me in a responsive call to worship. I will say the first voice, and if you'd please join with me in the second voice. Let us worship with our eyes and ears and fingertips. Let us love the world through heart and mind and body. We feed our eyes upon the mystery and revelation in the faces of our brothers and sisters. We seek to know the wistfulness of the very young and the very old, the wistfulness of people in all times of life. We seek to understand the shyness behind arrogance, the fear behind pride, the tenderness behind clumsy strength, the anguish behind cruelty. All life flows into a great common life if we will only open our eyes to our companions. Let us worship not in bowing down, not with closed eyes and stopped ears. Let us worship with the opening of all the windows of our beings, with the full outstretching of our spirits. Life comes with singing and laughter, with tears and confiding, with a rising wave too great to be held in the mind and heart and body to those who have fallen in love with life. Let us worship, and let us learn to love.
As we prepare to light our chalice this morning, I invite you to get your chalice ready at home so that you can light it as I light our sanctuary chalice in just a moment. It is a sacred time when a person leaves this life, and it's a tender time for those of us who are left behind, who are grieving a beloved who has died. Today, we dedicate our chalice lighting to our beloved Marge Meyerman, who died in the early morning on Thursday, May 7th. Marge was 96 years old. She was a beacon at First Unitarian and in our larger community during her many years of work and volunteerism. Marge joined the church in 1947, attending the old building on 8th and West Streets downtown, raising her children in the church and serving many, many leadership roles over the years, including 2 terms on the board. In 1973, she created Adopt a Family, a program that provides critical aid to low-income families throughout Delaware. In countless ways, Marge inspired many people toward volunteerism and toward community engagement. At this time, a memorial service has not been announced, but we'll continue to keep information available as it becomes known. We light our chalice flame this morning in gratitude for Marge Meyerman, for her life, for the twinkle in her eye, for every time she opened her arms to any one of us, for her commitments that spread love and justice throughout our larger community, We extend our care and concern to her daughters, Janet, Marnie, and Julie, and to other family and friends who are missing her presence in the world. First Unitarian Church Choir has been working hard from home to patch together a recording of one of our songs from our hymnal. And so they've been successful, and we're excited to unveil their very first recording of our virtual choir singing the first hymn in our hymnal, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door, and you're invited to sing along at home.
Thank you so much, virtual choir. That was beautiful. Please join me in affirming the mission of this church. First Unitarian Church of Wilmington is a beloved community that nourishes minds and spirits, fights injustice, and transforms the world through loving action. We begin our worship today with a story called Old Joe and the Carpenter. Please listen and see these pictures with me.
Old Joe and the Carpenter, an Appalachian Tale of Building Bridges by Margaret Reed MacDonald. Old Joe lived way out in the countryside, and he had one good neighbor. They'd been friends all their lives, and now that their spouses were buried and their children raised, all they had left were their farms and each other. But for the first time, they had had an argument. It was over a stray calf that neither one really needed. It seemed as though the calf was found on Joe's neighbor's land, and so he claimed it as his own. But old Joe said, "Nope, that calf has the same markings as my favorite cow, and I recognize it as being mine." Well, they were both a bit stubborn, so they just stopped talking to each other. It seemed that a dark cloud had settled over old Joe, until there came a knock on his door 1 week later. He wasn't expecting anybody that morning, and as he opened the door, he saw a young woman who had a box of tools on her shoulder. She had a kind voice and dark, deep eyes, and she said, "I'm a carpenter, and I'm looking for a bit of work. Maybe you have some small jobs I can help with?" Old Joe brought her into the kitchen and sat her down, and gave her some stew that he had on the back of the stove. There also was home-cooked bread, fresh churned butter, and homemade jam. While they were eating and talking, Joe decided that he liked this young carpenter, and he said, "I do have a job for you. Look, right there through my kitchen window. See that farm over there? That's my neighbor's place. And you see that creek running right down there between our property lines? That creek? It wasn't there last week. My neighbor did that to spite me. He took his plow up there and he dug a big old furrow from the upper pond and flooded it. Well, I want you to do one better. Since he wants us divided that way, you go out there and build me a fence, a big, tall fence, so I won't even have to see his place anymore." And the carpenter said, "Well, if you have the lumber and the nails, I got my tools, and I'll be able to build something that you'll like." Joe had to go to town to get some supplies, so he hitched up the wagon and showed the carpenter where everything was in the barn. The carpenter carried everything she needed down to the creek and started to work. The carpenter's work went smooth and fast. She did her measuring and her sawing and her nailing. It was about sunset when old Joe returned, and the carpenter had finished her work. When old Joe pulled up in that wagon, his eyes opened wide and his mouth fell open. There wasn't a fence there at all. It was a bridge going from one side of the creek to the other. It had handrails and all, a fine piece of work, and his neighbor was just starting to cross the bridge with his hand stuck out, and he was saying, "Joe, you're quite a fellow to build this bridge. I'd have never been able to do that. I'm so glad we're going to be friends again." And Joe, he put his arms around his neighbor and said, "Oh, that calf is yours. I've known it all the time. I just want to be your friend too." About that time, the carpenter started putting her tools in the box and then hoisted it onto her shoulder and started to walk away. And Joe said, "Wait, come on back, young carpenter. I want you to stay on. I got lots of projects for you." The carpenter just smiled and said, "I'd like to stay on, Joe, but you see, I can't. I've got more bridges to build." So she walked on, and there ends my tale.
As we walk through our lives today, this week, this month, let us keep in mind where we might need bridges and where we might need fences. There are times and places for each, for boundaries or thresholds. Please pray with me. A prayer for all who mother, by my colleague and friend, Reverend Victoria Weinstein. We reflect in thanksgiving this day for all those whose lives have nurtured ours, the life-giving ones who heal with their presence, who listen in sympathy, who give wise advice but only when asked for it, who are grateful for all those who have mothered us, who have held us gently in times of sorrow, who celebrated with us our triumphs, no matter how small, who noticed when we changed and grew, who praised us for taking risks, who took genuine pride in our successes, and who expressed genuine compassion when we did not succeed. On this day that honors mothers, let us honor all mothers, men and women alike, who from somewhere in their being have freely and wholeheartedly given life and sustenance and vision to us. Dear God, Mother, Father of us all, grant us life-giving ways, strength for birthing, and a nurturing spirit, that we may take attentive care of our world, our communities, and those precious beings entrusted to us by biology, or by destiny, or by friendship, fellowship, or fate. Give us the heart of a mother today. Amen. Part of our worshiping together is sharing from deep within that our sorrows might be lessened and our joys increased. You will be invited to call out into this holy space, into your holy space, a name or names of those you are holding in your thoughts this morning. It can be for prayers, support, joy, happiness. Spirit of community in which we share and find strength and common purpose, we turn our minds and hearts to one another, seeking to bring into our circle of concern all who need love and support, those who are ill, those who are in pain, either in body or in spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. Please share the names of those in your thoughts. We are part of a web of life that makes us one with all humanity, one with all the universe. We are grateful for the miracle of consciousness that we share, the consciousness that gives us the power to remember, to love, to care. Please join me now in a time of musical meditation where we reflect on those who have been called into this special time.
M is for the million things she gave me. O means only that she's growing old. T is for the tears were shed to save me. H is for her heart of pure as gold, pure as gold. E is for her eyes with love light shining. R means right and right she'll always be. Put them all together, they spell mother, a word that means the world to me.
Thank you so much for that music. Now, it doesn't say there's a reading, but there is a reading. That's just because I chose it late. The reading today is from the magazine Allure, which, yes, is a magazine about beauty. This is an article from November 2019 by Rosemary Donahue. She speaks about boundaries here. We've all heard the story of the 3 little pigs. The first, who built a house of straw. The second, who used sticks and twigs as material. And then finally, the third, who used bricks and saved his siblings from certain death by a hungry wolf. Most believe this story is about how hard work pays off. And while this is partially true, I've always seen it as a story about the importance of boundaries. Permeable, straw-like boundaries may be flexible as hell, but they can be easily torn or blown down. They're not exactly protective, even if they provide the illusion of structure for a time. A foundation made from sticks may take longer to gather and require more fortitude to put together, but strong enough wind can still knock it over. But brick? While bricklaying takes some time and skill, the space you outline with such materials will likely remain immovable through any storm. One crucial point to remember: when you're making a house with brick, you can still put windows and doors in the blueprints. There are ways to allow the outside world in, even if the space you create for yourself stands firm. It's the same with healthy boundaries. As dynamics change, so too must your boundaries, but they shouldn't be so malleable that you're knocked over by every little thing that comes your way. This is a great piece about boundaries. It's actually an introduction to a series that Allure magazine was doing about boundaries. It goes on a little bit and references articles about setting boundaries with a toxic family member, creating boundaries online, creating and keeping healthy boundaries in sexual relationships. It's a good piece and has lots of resources, and maybe I'll put it in the comments on the recorded service if I have that ability. From the reading, from the prayer this morning, we reflect in thanksgiving this day for all those whose lives have nurtured. We all have people who have nurtured us, and we all have nurtured many people in turn. Today is Mother's Day. This is a day for celebrating all of the life-giving ones, all those who heal, who listen, who hold and care. And it is a day when we are all asked to be caregivers. To be caregivers and life givers in a strange way by not being with each other, by not being together. I preach in this wonderful sacred space to all of you, each in your own wonderful and sacred space. This is the caring we are doing right now by staying away. By staying away from each other and learning how to love over distances and through devices. The strange place we are in brings the stories we heard this morning to mind. The story of building fences or bridges. The story of 3 little pigs. Both stories have parallels to what we are experiencing right now. The parallel in that we have all been asked, we have all been called upon to be caring by building walls, by setting up physical boundaries so that we don't get sick, nor do we get others sick. So we build boundaries, we build walls, we put up our brick houses. Building boundaries, keeping apart can be, I know it is for me, can be very sad. It's sad to be asked to care for ourselves and others by staying apart. We are going through and continue to go through losses. The loss of companionship, loss of freedom, the loss of normalcy. On this Mother's Day, we can't visit our family, nor can we gather to mourn. It is a holiday for families when we can't be physically together. Our new boundaries have been forced upon us, and for the most part, our lives would be easier and more comfortable if they didn't exist. Boundaries are hard to maintain, they get in the way, and sometimes, like now, they can be very frustrating. But I agree with the author from Allure, which used the pig's brick house as a positive example, both for physical and for metaphorical boundaries. Remember that this article was not composed in response to a global pandemic. It was written before the social distancing and before COVID-19 were part of our daily routines and realities. The thing with boundaries is that they need to be healthy, neither too strict nor too permeable. The first little pig builds the house out of straw, which lets in pretty much anything. The second pig builds out of sticks, which is more sturdy than straw, but still quite permeable and eventually also is broken down. The third little pig uses bricks, an impermeable boundary between inside and outside, although his walls are perforated with windows, doors, and a chimney. The parallels between these 3 houses and our current global pandemic is stark. where we are asked to keep ourselves behind our doors in our houses. The message of boundaries, though, is not just for now. It transcends the COVID-19 mindset and time frame and has parallels to personal interactions and sort of metaphorical emotional boundaries. If we have loose, permeable personal boundaries, we are likely to lose ourselves in others. Being too permeable means always reacting to how other people are living their lives. If we let ourselves become dependent on what others think of us, we can't help but get hurt or hurt others. Actions and reactions are fused to another's actions or whims or expectations. When we are fused, we have a poorly differentiated sense of self. We don't really know who we are because we depend so heavily on the actions and thoughts of other people that our ideas, our thoughts and identities become morphed, manipulated, and lost. The boundaries between self and other breaks down, and we become a series of reactions rather than our true selves. Self-differentiation is the opposite of this. It's defining one identity separate from others, having boundaries to define. It means taking the time and energy to figure out who we are and to mindfully define ourselves apart from others, from someone else. Healthier boundaries allow us to be ourselves, have our own ideas, our own thoughts. Good boundaries mean that we don't lose the existence of I when we join in we. Living a life with boundaries is a life where you are true to yourself and able to have interpersonal interactions. It's a balance between sort of aloofness and dependency. Now, COVID-19 actually gives us another great example for boundaries, and I have a face mask. Great example of boundaries. Wearing no face mask or wearing a face mask of very open material is akin to building our house out of straw or sticks. There's no boundary or very thin boundary. Anything can pass through. Too much permeability, too many thresholds for germs to spread in and out. Having a too permeable or non-existent face mask is not caring, nor is it healthy for you or for those around you. Just as having too permeable personal boundaries can be unhealthy for you and unhealthy for those around you. It leads to discomfort, pain. We need some boundary between ourselves and others. And the mask analogy goes in the other directions than the pigs do. Think about what would happen if we made a mask too dense, too impermeable. If we blocked everything coming in and out, well, we wouldn't get COVID-19, but we also wouldn't be able to breathe. A face mask must have some permeability. It must have some openings and thresholds to get air in and out. Maybe you have a fourth little pig who makes a house out of metal sheeting with no windows, no doors, no ventilation. Yeah, sure, that the house won't let anything dangerous in, but it also won't let anything beneficial like air, food, water, or friendship. The fourth pig is what happens if we make a face mask out of a balloon or a plastic bag. It will keep out everything bad and good. We will be worse off than if we had no mask. So the parallel to non-pandemic life here is aloofness, being so separate, so disinterested in any personal interaction that we lose any touch, any connection. If we hold so extremely to strict, impermeable boundaries, we are cut off from community. We lose any benefit, any partnership or relationship. Extremely rigid and impenetrable boundaries is when we build up that metaphorical wall and don't let anyone in. We refuse relationship. We are unwilling to share or connect. So the goal is to be in the middle. To be in the middle, to have strong boundaries, but also knowing where to put the proverbial windows and doors, who and what to let across your thresholds. Because they are your thresholds. You get to decide your own boundaries, what or who can pass over that. There will be pushback. This is uncomfortable work. It's hard to create and sustain boundaries. And the strange part now is that we are being moved more and more into rigid and strict boundaries. The message is clear. Stay at home. Don't go out. Don't visit friends or neighbors or restaurants or family or playgrounds or school or work. Don't go out. Put up a boundary. Keep the sickness at bay. Interestingly, staying at home pushes us in the other direction as well. If you are living with other people, it is very easy to lose ourselves in another, especially if you are a caregiver, a teacher, a parent, a minister, a nurse, doctor, social worker. As a parent right now of little children, I know this all too well. My children would burn me out in a matter of hours if I let them, which is developmentally appropriate for them. During the day, every other word is dada. Dada, can you, dada, dada, get me, dada, dada, I need. If you are a caregiver, or really anyone with someone else in your household, constant demands and constant contact can feel all too familiar. That's the flip side of having no boundaries at all. We're squished together. Sometimes the best thing I can do for my children is to say no. And it's hard for me to hear that, even saying it to myself. No, I can't help you right now. I need to go to the bathroom. No, I'm not going to interrupt my eating a meal to get you a dessert. Or just, no, I need some time to myself. And you need some time for yourself. Setting boundaries is a great way of taking care of oneself. It's also a great way to assist the other person, the other people, to set their own boundaries and to take care of themselves, to learn who they are without enmeshing. Boundaries are an act of care and love for oneself and for others. But boundaries change. It gets very difficult very quickly. Thresholds can be added or removed. The story we just heard about old Joe is a good reminder that sometimes a bridge is better than a fence. And a reminder that fences can be shifted. Bridges can be made or destroyed. What was missing a little bit in the story, at least until the very end, was communication. It's key to be open about what boundaries exist, where your boundaries are, what my expectations of them are, how they might impact others, and especially if boundaries are changing or shifting. Right now, at my house, we are fixing a fence in our yard, which is sort of in disrepair. It needs to be straightened up, reset. Our fence was put up many years ago, and when it was erected, the fence was actually put 3 feet into our property. And so when it gets fixed, I'm going to move it back 3 feet to give us some more space and expanding our lawn and thus affecting our very physical boundary. Now that fence butts up against our neighbor's land. So I reached out to him and I made sure he knew what we were doing and that we were planning on shifting those boundaries. Doing it without communication is or can be extremely harmful. Another example of where we see boundaries change and shift specifically is in unions of love. In many weddings and joining ceremonies, the couple is reminded that their new life, I becomes we. Mine becomes ours. This is when the two are joined to become one. But which one? Who or what is the new being which buds from the union of two individuals? The tension remains. I want to go to the movies, my spouse does not. What do we do? Do we do different things? Do we compromise and do something together? Are my circle of friends and my partner's circle of friends the same? It is good to think in terms of us and we, but couples, all of us, we need to be aware that I and me still exist, not to lose those definitions. And speaking of marriage, this may come as a surprise. I just got married. But don't send me any congratulatory cards just yet. It was a marriage of convenience, so to speak. And my wife and I have been wed for coming on 12 years. What I'm talking about is what actually happened is that our family, me, my wife, and our 2 children, have decided to join households with another family, my sister, her husband, and their child. In this time of social distancing and isolation, we jointly decided that the adults and the children would be better off if we COVID married and joined our households to be one. Now I live in a household of 4 adults and 3 small children. It's a very weird thing to join households and not something I would have imagined before this time. But we talked it over and we decided to break down our boundaries while still keeping others. The households have joined, and now we share living space, we share food, we share childcare. We've made the boundary between the 2 houses very permeable. But in doing so, we have also created more space for the adults to have their own time and space. It's a balancing act of love and intimacy, and it was done with open communication and an understanding that we need to keep talking, just as in other marriages. Joining at a time of pandemic brings up all sorts of things to discuss around thresholds and boundaries. Who does the grocery shopping? Can we go for walks? How do we interact with people who are not in our family unit? Do we have enough masks for the entire family to go out? Are family outings even safe at all? All places where we need to be open about our decisions, open about our communication, and sometimes closed with our boundaries. Paul Tillich, a Lutheran minister and theologian in the mid-1900s, stated it as follows: "What is most characteristically human about us is the tension between the desire to be free, self-identifying and self-choosing, and to be related, to love and be loved." I'm going to say that again. What is most characteristically human about us is the tension between the desire to be free, self-identifying and self-choosing, and to be related, to love and be loved. This is a fundamental task in emotional growth, finding a balance between separateness and closeness, knowing who we are, standing up for ourselves and our beliefs, while still being in relationship with others, giving and receiving of love and support, being close, being separate, having roots, having wings. They pull in different directions, and they create this tension. The important thing is how we manage that tension. We are best served by not being too separate and isolating ourselves, and not being too close and losing ourselves. So the message is both simple and difficult. Keep your boundaries. Ensure you are taking care of yourself and you are taking care of others. We need boundaries to keep the global pandemic at bay. And also, we need boundaries with our personal lives. In keeping boundaries, be open about your decisions, how they impact others, and respect other people's boundaries. Be careful about your open places, those thresholds where people are physically or emotionally let in. Don't close everything off. Have those thresholds, or you'll be wearing a face mask of plastic. Keep the permeability, keep the thresholds, shift boundaries if you need, and do it safely. This is about care. This is about love for you, for those around you, for the world. I end with a quote from the psychotherapist Joyce Martyr. "Boundaries should be firm enough that you feel emotionally and physically safe and comfortable, yet permeable enough that you allow love and intimacy to flow between you and another person." Amen.
Each month, we dedicate 100% of our offering to support an organization or cause that supports our Unitarian Universalist principles of peace, justice, and interdependence. Today, we're giving and receiving an offering to support Wilmington's Urban Bike Project, who during this COVID-19 restriction time has experienced a 60% surge in the need for bikes as bus service and other avenues of shared transportation have been reduced and or become unsafe, and also as people turn to biking as a means of getting outside during this time. Each year, the Urban Bike Project gives away and sells hundreds of bikes, ensuring that anyone needing bike transportation has access. Let's hear now from their executive director, Laura Wilburn.
Hi, my name is Laura Wilburn. I'm the Executive Director of Urban Bike Project, greeting you from my backyard on this beautiful day. Urban Bike Project is a nonprofit community bike shop. We're located on the east side of Wilmington, 1500 North Walnut Street. Our goal is to help anybody who wants to ride a bike be able to do that. So we have affordable used bikes for sale. We also have free bikes for adults who are in need of transportation. A lot of the folks we work with are homeless or in transitional housing, or perhaps are coming out of the justice system, and transportation is a major barrier for them. So we provide a bicycle so that they can get where they need to go, even if it's a night shift when the buses aren't running, or if it goes someplace where the buses don't service. They can still get there. We also have youth programs, summer camps, school programs, different ways for kids to learn mechanics and earn a bike. We do group rides with both kids and adults to help people learn about safe routes in Wilmington. And now more than ever, we've seen incredible demand for bicycles as people look for ways to get outside and take care of their physical and mental health during these difficult times. So I really appreciate your support. Thank you so much. It couldn't come at a better time. And if you have any questions, if you want to learn more about our organization, please visit www.urbanbikeproject.org or shoot me an email at wilburn.laura@gmail.com. Thank you so much.
There are two ways to give to Urban Bike Project. One way is to share a financial gift. All of the donations received today through our Give Plus app will support the Urban Bike Project. Use the Sunday morning collection designation in the Give Plus app. You can also mail your check to us and be sure to indicate that it's for the Urban Bike Project. And you can donate a used bike as well by contacting the Urban Bike Project directly. Their team of mechanics fixes up old bikes to further their mission. And now join me in dedicating our gifts and our lives to what matters. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings.
Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears, while we all sub sorrow with the poor. There's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis a song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered light and gay. There are frail forms fainting at the door. Though their voices are silent, their pleading looks will say, oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis a song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Tis a sigh that is wafted across the troubled wave. Tis a wail that is heard upon the shore. Tis a dirge that is murmured beside the lowly grave. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis a sigh, the song of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Oh, hard times come again no more.
We close with these words by Reverend Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Amen and amen.
This is our moment. This is our time.
you.